tu bhavata chanu manye yatha sato danai anadya bhavat samula isto vyavaharamaga Tristasrama kamata atmano vai bhatu gantu bhavata shanu manye yatha sato danayana jabhavat samula isto vyavaharamagaha. Would anyone on Zoom would like to repeat the verse? I'm calling out, first of all, to Agari Krishna Prabhu, trying to follow your footsteps. You can I turn the light on? It's kind of sunny right now. So, I think this is the best that I can in terms of light. Sorry, devotees, there's a request to sort of like fix the light, but Lauren, would you like to try to read the verse today?
I can attempt to. It looks kind of hard.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry. Just, yeah.
Okay. Drista Shrima Karmata Atmano Vai Barter Gunter Bhavatas Chanumane Yatha Satodana Yanabi Abhava Samula Isto Vaya Vahara Marga. That was hard.
Yeah, this is quite hard, but you made it. Thank you so much for being brave and being brave and willingly to try. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling me out.
I know you would do it, and I really admire your bravery to read that. I don't know if anyone else would like to try Madhulila Kishori, Yasudev. If not, anyone? Oh, yes, Madhulila Kishori, please.
Let me see. I will try.
Thank you.
Drista Shrama Kamata Atmano Vai Batur Gantur Bhavatas Chanyumane Yata Sato Danayana Diabhavat Shamula Ishto Via Vahara Margaha.
Thank you so much. Okay. I will continue with the translation word by word. Tristaha, it is experienced by everyone. Sramaha, fatigue. Kamataha, from acting in some way. Atmanaha, of the soul. Vai, indeed. Batu, of one who is carrying the palanquin. Gantu, of one who is moving. Bhavata, of yourself. Cha and Anumanye, I guess like that. Yata, as much as. Asata, with something that is not an actual fact. Buddha, of water. Anayanadi, of the bringing and others of tasks. Abhavad, from the absence. Samulaha, based on evidence. Istaha, respected. Vyavaharamagaha, phenomenon. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai. Translation. You have said, so this is Maharahugana speaking to Jat Bharat after hearing Jat Bharat first talking sort of the introduction of his teaching to Mara Rahugana, and now Mara Rahugana is sort of like trying to understand what Jat Bharat was speaking earlier, and so Mara Rahugana, he said, "You have said, I am not fatigued from labor. Although the soul is different from the body, there is fatigue because of bodily labor, and it appears to be the fatigue of the soul. When you are carrying the palanquin, there is certainly labor for the soul. This is my conjecture. You have also said that the external behavior exhibited between the master and the servant is not factual. But although in the phenomenal world it is not factual, the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things that is visible and experienced. As such, even though material activities are impermanent, they cannot be said to be untrue." Purport. This is a discussion on impersonal Mayavada philosophy and the practical philosophy of Vaisava. The Mayavada philosophy explained this phenomenal world to be false, but Vaisava philosophers do not agree. They know that the phenomenal world is a temporary manifestation, but is not false. A dream that we see at night is certainly false, but a horrible dream certainly affects the person seeing it. The soul's fatigue is not factual, but as long as one is immersed in an illusory bodily conception, one is affected by such false dreams. When dreaming, is it not possible to avoid the actual fact? And the conditioned soul is forced to suffer due to his dream. A water pot is made of earth and is temporary. Actually, there's no water pot. There's simply earth. However, as long as the water pot can contain water, we can use it in that way. It cannot be said to be absolutely false. So, dear devotees, please join with me in prayer to the Guru Paramparas so that I can be of service for you today and I can speak something that is of benefit for you all. And I pray for the blessing and the mercy of the devotee who are listening and who is joining in the class, because all knowledge comes from Krishna. So I can only speak as far as the Super Soul allow me to. So praying to the blessing of the devotees who are listening and who are joining on Zoom right now. Om Makena Timarandasha Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhataya Bhutale Shrimate Devamrita Swami Dinamini Prachare Purakshancha Bhakta Charapavindata Paradata Pikarunya Yasha Save Jate Nama Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhataya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saravati Deve Guravani Pacharini Nivashesha Sanyavari Pachajare Satarine Shaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakapadra Vishaka Pasindra Bhavatam Patitanam Pavanebhyo Visvabhyo. Okay, so the verse today has a lot of it appears to me originally very deep, and there's a lot of just very deep points, and I'm sort of like questioning, why did Srila Prabhupada put this here? What is the meaning of this verse? And so I was trying to read throughout this chapter, and I realized that this conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jat Bharat continues. And this point that this verse is is presenting to us today is actually the conversation continue until chapter 12, and it's so amazing. So please continue to tune in every morning Srimad Bhagavatam class to hear the nectar, because this is King Rahugana trying to understand when Jadbara talk about the science of the soul. So Jadbara was trying to say that I am not this, let's see. So earlier in this chapter, Jadbara was saying that I am a self-realized soul, I am not this body, and I'm just trying to find some verses so that I can recite it correctly. Yeah, so basically Jadbara was saying, the load carried by the body does not belong to me, for I am the spirit soul. I am not the carrier of the palanquin, the body is a carrier. I have not labored carrying the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. The body may be fat or thin, but no learned man would say such things of the spirit soul. As far as the spirit soul is concerned, I am neither fat nor skinny. Therefore, you're correct when you say that I am not very stout. So Jadbara was trying to explain to Mara Rahugana that I am the spirit soul, I am not this body. And so now when Mara Rahugana, when he comes to his senses and when he realized that Jadbara is not an ordinary servant or an ordinary even person, human being, he is actually a self-realized soul. So now he's trying to understand what Jadbara said earlier. And so now he made the argument that, well, Jadbara, you have said that I am not fatigued from labor because you are the soul, so you're not fatigued from labor. But this is Mara Rahugana's attempt to understand, and he's saying that, well, the soul is different from the body. There's fatigue from the bodily labor. So it appears to be the fatigue of the soul. So he's trying to make the argument that, well, because you are carrying the palanquin, so the soul can actually still feel fatigue because the body feels fatigue. So that is the argument of Mara Rahugana. And I think we as conditioned souls, many of us can feel related to that when we hear the science that I am not the body, I am the spirit soul. And then we try to understand that, well, I'm not the body. But then how does that feel like, or what does that even mean? And here we can see that Mara Rahugana trying to attempt the same thing, trying to understand the message. And so this is the argument of King Rahugana. And it's very interesting that this terms, Srila Prabhupada explained, this is my conjecture. And I was trying to find a definition what conjecture means, because this word is a new word for me. And so I find a definition of conjecture, that is an opinion or conclusion formed on the basis of incomplete information, or basically a guess or an assumption. And I think in the translation word by word, I think that is Anumanye, I guess like that. So this is King Rahugana guessing or trying to make the conclusion of what Jat Maharaj was trying to say. And so he goes on, Maharaj Rahugana, he goes on and explains, you have also said that the external behavior exhibited between the master and the servant is not factual, but although in the phenomenal world is not factual, the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things. So Maharaj Rahugana, he's trying to say that, well, okay, you're saying that this relationship between the master and the servant is not factual because the phenomenal world is not factual. But the product of this world can still affect things. Or in other words, I think about the example that, let's say, the relationship between you and your family is not factual, like you and your biological family is not factual, because anything in this phenomenal world is temporary and is not factual. But the products of the phenomenal world, or in other words, let's say the products of this relationship, like I still have like friendship, I still like have some attachment to family. These products can still actually affect things. So Mara Rahugana is trying to say that, well, you are still affected by whatever going on in the material world, even though it's not factual. And so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained that the soul's fatigue is not factual, but as long as one is immersed in the illusory bodily conception, one is affected by such false dreams. So in other words, Srila Prabhupada explaining that because King Maharaj Rahugana, he is still immersed in the bodily conception of life, and that is why he thinks that the fatigue of the body is also the fatigue of the soul. And so Srila Prabhupada made an example of someone who dreamed. So Srila Prabhupada said, a dream that we see at night is certainly false, but a horrible dream certainly affects a person seeing it. So basically back to the point of King Rahugana saying that things in the material world is not factual, but the product of it can still affect things. So here Srila Prabhupada made the example. When we are in dream, imagine that we have like a nightmare. And even though we know that this dream is not actual, this dream doesn't represent any actual facts, but because we are the person who's dreaming, and so we are still affected by this horrible dream. So similarly, a conditioned soul, when we are not awakened to our identity as spirit soul, we basically still in a dreaming condition. And so we think that whatever going on in this material world, whatever pain or pleasure that we experience, we think that affects us because we are still the person who's dreaming. I don't know if that makes sense. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada say, when dreaming, it is not possible to avoid the actual facts. So when dreaming, it's impossible for us to realize that we're actually dreaming. Like I remember when I have like a nightmare of being chased by a ghost or zombie, it was just like intense fear and just like trying to run. And so when dreaming, I'm not even aware that that's a dream. So similarly, when the conditioned soul is not awakened to their true identity, they are dreaming, and it's very difficult for them to realize that I am dreaming. I think that I'm still seeing the truth, but no, actually I am still dreaming. And so Srila Prabhupada said, when dreaming, is not possible to avoid the actual fact, and the conditioned soul is forced to suffer due to his dream. So that's one area of this conversation that Maharaj Rahugana is trying to convey in front of Jan Bharat. And I'm gonna sort of like go ahead and read a few verses in the next chapter, because after hearing the attempt to understand the science of the soul from Maharaj Rahugana, Jadbara actually told Maharaj Rahugana like this. This is the next chapter, first text. The Brahmana Jadbara said, "My dear king, although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a very experienced man. Consequently, you cannot be considered an experienced person. An experienced person does not speak the way you are speaking about the relationship between a master and servant or about material pains or pleasures. These are simply external activities. Any advanced experienced man considering the absolute truth does not talk in this way. My dear king talks of the relationship between the master and the servant, the king and the subject, and so forth, as simply talks about material activities." Yeah, and a dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial. And similarly, one eventually realizes that material happiness in this life or the next, or in this planet or higher planet, is insignificant. When one realizes this, the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insufficient to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. So yeah, following up the next verses, the next chapter, so much nectar, so much knowledge. And so, yeah, I really look forward to that. At the same time, right now we are at this verse, and let me see what are other points that so we can understand that it's not a fact that when the body feel the fatigue, the soul would feel the fatigue. And here in the second part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada, I read this part again because I think this part is also has a lot of very deep and yeah, it's just very enlivening point. So Srila Prabhupada, he mentioned a water pot is made of earth and is temporary. Actually, there's no water pot, there's simply earth. And later on in this verse, in the next chapter, Srila Prabhupada, Jadbara explained that the reason why I was speaking earlier that this conversation is going on until chapter 12 is because I found some very nectar verses that connected directly with this verse. And so in relation to Srila Prabhupada purport about a water pot is made of earth and how actually there's no water pot, it's singular earth, Srila Prabhupada making the point that everything existing in this material world in the growth, in the material, physical sense, something that you can touch, something that you can see, the physical manifestation of things, like the water pot, for example, those are all transformation of the same thing, which is the earth. And so there's this verse in chapter 12 of this canto, chapter 12, text 10. Jadbara explained to King Marahugana that all manifestations of different bodies or shapes are all parts made of the same substance, earth, but they're named differently. So a water pot is made of earth and it's temporary, but actually there's no water pot because ultimately it's still the earth. And similarly, in terms of our experience in this material world, pain, pleasure, lamentation, fear, all kinds of things that we perceive and experience through our senses, they are felt through the channel of the material mind by the different transformations of material nature, of different modes of material nature, which is not factual. And so that is the logic that Jadbara is explaining to Marahugana, that you are saying that the bodies feel fatigue, so that the soul would feel fatigue. But no, this fatigue is just another transformation of the mortal material nature that you're feeling in this body, which is ultimately made of earth, beginning from earth. And there's the sentence said by Srila Prabhupada, the mind is conducted by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. The mind is the center for accepting the dictations of material nature. And so, so whatever we experience in this body, like Mara Hugana, he's trying to say that, well, this phenomenal world is not factual, but the products of it can still affect things. In other words, our body is not factual, but we can still experience pain and pleasure. We're still affected by or fatigue or all these things that are going on. But the truth is, whatever going on, whatever we experience is only the transformation of the different modes of nature. And we can see that very vividly. Actually, I think about this point, and actually this is the point that Nagari Thai helped me to understand about how devotees, as we practicing Krishna consciousness, we think that we do not really indulge so much in tamagun or the mode of ignorance, because we try to rise early in the morning, try to chant our route, engaging in devotional service, have a standard of cleanliness. But in fact, that is only the external level. There's also the growth experience of tamagun, and so Nagari Thai helped me to understand that as devotee, we still actually indulge in tamagun, even though in a very subtle level, and that is experienced through the mind. So lamentation is definitely a symptoms of tamagun, or self-destruction manifesting through low self-esteem, beating up yourself. I think I can only speak for myself, but I'm very good at beating myself up or criticizing myself, or shaming myself, which if it's not actually a transcendental lamentation or transcendental real humility, then it's actually have the effect of self-destruction. It's like me, or I think in general, when people engage in self-destruction, criticizing oneself, it may make them feel less enthusiastic to engage in more devotional service. And that is actually the indulgence in tamagun. And similarly, in rajagun passion, the mind, even though we externally, we as devotee may do all the right thing, but internally, the mind can still be so attached to enjoying like very beautiful clothes, or I mean, that's sort of the example of like the body of a ladies, but men, sort of like the desire to enjoy fruitive activity, the desire for fame, adoration, that's also in the mode of passion. We also read it in Bhagavad Gita. And so I think it's just sharing this as a realization that, oh yeah, we have to be also mindful of what's going on internally for us as we're practicing Krishna consciousness, as we're trying to become a devotee. We might be able to externally do all the right thing, but internally, where is our mind at? Whether we're actually trying to please Krishna, or are we really doing the service in the mood that I am doing the service as an offering for Krishna? I'm doing the service to please Guru and Krishna. And yeah, and the symptoms of someone who is in a mode of goodness, they can feel very peaceful and happy. which in Kata Yuga is kind of hard to find, but I think it's Advaita Nagari is much easier to experience as peacefulness, although as devotees absorbed in their devotional service for Guru and Krishna's pleasure, there could be a lot of exhaustion from the body. I know devotees at Gita Nagari right now has been really going through a lot of, I would say, enlivening service, but I know for sure that it's very exhausting for the body as well. And so we understand that until we get to the platform of real transcendental, real self-realized, like Jat Bharat, we're going to continue to feel the effect of the body. And this is not anything that's bad. It's just that we are in the process and we are going to get there. So as devotee, it's not to say that, well, we should think that we are spirit souls, so we're not going to feel any fatigue, we're not going to feel any exhaustion, things like that, because if we're actually there, then we are no longer like in the material world anymore. And I remember the Amrita Maharaj, when he replied to a question in his reading previously, the last time when he was here, he was saying that we start out as conditioned soul, we don't start out as Paramahamsa. So we in the process getting to realize one day that we are spirit soul, like the pure devotee who are already realized, but we're not there. And so we're going to continue to feel the effect of this phenomenal world, just like Maharaj Rahugana trying to say. And that is something that we're going to experience. But there's a very encouraging verse. I think we already read this verse. I'm trying to find, I believe, yeah, this is text 10 of this chapter, Canto 5, chapter 10, text 10. And in the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada, he said that it is not possible for everyone to become immediately self-realized like Jat Bharat. However, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nasta prayes vabatreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. By spreading the Bhagavat principles, we can raise human society to the platform of perfection. When one is not affected by the bodily conceptions, we can advance to the Lord devotional service. So when one is not affected by the bodily conceptions, one can advance to the Lord devotional service. The more we advance our freedom from the bodily conception, the more we are fixed in devotional service, and the more we are happy and peaceful. In this regard, Srimad Vacharya says that those who are too materially affected continue the bodily conception. Excuse me. Such persons are concerned with different bodily symptoms, whereas one free from bodily conception lives without a body, even in the material condition. So that is something that I think we all want to strive for, that we can one day be free from bodily conceptions, so that we, even though we live in this body, in this material condition, we still don't feel the bodily symptom. We don't feel the bodily effects like Jat Bharat. But I find it very encouraging, because the more we try to advance ourselves, getting free from this bodily conception, the more we are fixed in devotional service. But we can advance our freedom from the bodily conceptions. How are we going to do that? Of course, in engaging in the process of Krishna consciousness through the 9 process of devotional service. But at the same time, I think it's also require a very conscious effort to, and I think I remember this is what Devamrita Maharaj he said in one of his class last year. I remember that he was reading these verses when he came last year, and someone asked him how to, I don't remember exactly detail, but I just share what I remember. And so how to free from the bodily conception. And he gave the example that someone asked Srila Prabhupada the same question, and Srila Prabhupada, or some question that very similar, and Srila Prabhupada said that you just meditated, you're not the body all the time, something like that. I don't remember the exact words that he used, but what I get from it is that we have to consciously, especially during our japa, and I think it's going the concept that I am not this body, I'm not this mind, I am a spirit soul, a part and parcel of consciousness, coming from Krishna. And so that simultaneously with the idea that I am Krishna's servant because I'm his part and parcel. So these two realization come simultaneously together. And so I think very, very important that during chanting japa, how much do we actually stay in tune with our spiritual identity, or we are still bothered by what's going on in the mind. Oh, this is what I need to do today. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, all kinds of things that you can think of, because when you chant japas, your mind can go in all directions going to, and as soon as you try to shut down one thought, another thing is going to occur, because the mind really know how to capture us when we chant our japa. And so the question is, how much do we actually stay attuned with our spiritual identity when we chant our japa? And when we chant our japa, with that, even though we not even realize that, but just trying to meditate, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, and really gradually see the detachment from it, and just meditating, I'm just a spiritual part and parcel of Krishna, part and parcel of the supreme consciousness. And also the more we read Sastra, the more we actually feel so in touch, and the realization will come more and more as well. I started reading the CC and I was just like, whoa, there's just so much ocean of vast knowledge. And the more we understand how the material world works, how, just like the verse today, Srila Prabhupada explained the transformation of everything physical that we can see in the world is transformation from earth. And so as we have this knowledge, it's easier for us to realize, oh, yeah, these are actually temporary. This is not actually, they're not false, but they're temporary. And so the more knowledge that we have, especially through reading Sastra, the more we are also easier, it makes it easier for us to stay more tuned to our real identity, our constitutional position as a spirit soul, as part and parcel of Krishna. And as I believe that many devotees, hopefully many, probably experience that when you chant the holy name with so much sincerity and so much attention, and just really chant, then gradually your constitutional position of who you are in the spiritual world gradually revealed to you as well. And so that is a very, very advanced stage, but yeah, it's just, I guess that's all I have to share today. If anyone has some reflections or questions or some ideas, please share with me and enliven all of us.
Hi, Bo. Good morning. Thank you so much for your class, Parmeshri Dasi. I really liked your point when you were talking about how, as devotees, we can feel almost sort of like a pride that we're practicing these 4 regulative principles, and we're rising early and we're chanting, but then mentally I might be in tamas. I might be beating myself up, or feeling some other sort of way that really isn't in alignment with Krishna consciousness. And it was just something to really, really meditate on today. And then when you were speaking about chanting this morning, after chanting, I was reading Chant Anyway by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur about, even when your mind's wandering, even when you're like just keep chanting, because this holy name is just, it's our Lord. It's the manifestation of Krishna right here with us. And it's our mentor and our guide. And so it just really drove home to me again, too, when you spoke that, chanting is where it's at. Like, keep chanting. And Deborah Maharaj often says that, like, when your mind is throwing a lot of nonsense at you, chant more, throw it back. So it also brought that. And then when you were speaking about King Rahuganath, I thought, to me, and Srimad Bhagavatam is just amazing, isn't it? Like, you read it again, and something else. You get something else. You get like more nectar. But what it struck me is that here's a king, right? Here's someone who previously just felt like I am above it all, and and was viewed as righteous and rightful as a king. And now he's humble enough to say, I don't get it, but this is the way I'm seeing it. Like, and to be brave enough to put it out there to say, this may not be right, but from where I'm sitting, this is the best I can do. This is how I'm seeing it. That's encouraging to me. It encouraged me to speak up today in class. And so even the smallest things in Srimad Bhagavatam, they change us, they transform us, and they affect us. So thank you so much again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for your, like you said, feeling brave to share with us your thoughts processing and your realizations and your inspiration as well. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And you kind of trigger some thoughts in me, and I was actually relatable. I think the point that King Rahugana, he was like such like a proud and like king, and then suddenly he's just like humble himself, like, and just suddenly like it appears like our son should like realize, oh, I made a great offense. And I was actually having the same question, but I believe that I read an explanation. I don't remember whether in this chapter or in some other chapter, Srila Prabhupada actually explained, and I will try to find that quickly, and maybe Tara Prabhu or the devotees in the call can help me find that verse when Srila Prabhupada explained the reason why Maharaj Rahugana was able to, because there's something about like being a king in this certain time period means you have to have some piety, and usually kings in that period are quite pious, although they may still be pop-up, but they have some piety that when in contact with the great devotee, they can it's actually very cool. Oh yeah, I think I found this verse in text 15. So I just read that. I'm very grateful that you brought up this point, because it's also sort of like a part of my meditation when I was reading this verse and chapter to prepare for class today. And it also something that struck me. So in this text 15, Sukadeva Goswami continue, O best of the Pandu dynasty, the king of Sindhu and Sauvir state, which is Maharaj Rahugana. So Maharaj Rahugana had great faith in discussion of the absolute truth. Being thus qualified, he heard from Jadbharat that philosophical presentation which is the brew by all scriptures on the mystic yoga process and which slacken the knot in the heart. His material conception of himself as a king was thus destroyed, and he immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat on the ground with his head at the lotus feet of Jadbharat in such a way that he might be excused for his insulting words against the great Brahmana. And so when I read this, I was like, wait, just like immediately, he's just like Mara the king just immediately just like immediately fall into his palanquin and fell flat on the ground. And so like you mentioned, I think one part of that is because the words of the great soul have the power to destroy the knot in the heart. And I think that we can all feel very vividly, especially with our spiritual master, that the word of the great soul can really bring us to real consciousness, or even just being in the presence of the great soul. We can immediately get back to our senses. But that doesn't happen to everyone, not all conditioned soul. Whenever seeing a great devotee, they immediately realize that, oh, I'm just a spirit soul. Not all conditioned souls get that benefit. So I think there's two sides, if I understand correctly. Devotee, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a piety of the king, and there are also the power of the great soul. And so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained that through the disciple succession, the royal order was on the same platform as great saintly person. Formerly, they could understand the philosophy of life and knew how to train the citizens to come to the same standard. In other words, they knew how to deliver the citizen from entanglement of birth and death. So I think what Srila Prabhupada was explaining here is that the king, the ideal king is actually in the same platform as the saintly person, because they know what is the purpose of life, and they are able to understand the philosophy of life and knew how to train the citizens to come to the same standard, or come to the realization, come to the spiritual perfection. So but then here, as the Kali Yuga progressed, and Sri Prabhupada explained that there's going to be more challenging. The king is going to be thieves, and in Kali Yuga, we already know how our government is. So there's another sentence in the purport. Sri Prabhupada explained that Mara Rahugana also knew the purpose of life. Therefore, when Jadbharat put the philosophy of life before him, he immediately appreciated it. So yeah, I hope that answer, because it's so interesting. I was also so shocked with that. So hope that helps. Yes, anything else from Vibhakti, if you would like to share?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you for another wonderful class. I always appreciate your classes. It's always enlivening for me for a host of reasons. One is that I enjoy seeing the extent to which you are appreciating the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. I see that you get excited about the wealth of knowledge available in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other books. And you're enthusiastic to assimilate that knowledge. That's exciting to me, to see your excitement. And I know that I'm not alone. I can speak actually for my god siblings. We take great delight in seeing newer devotees appreciating Krishna consciousness. We ourselves have our own appreciation, and we're excited to see others have the chance to appreciate how wonderful Krishna consciousness is. The depth and breadth of what is there is extraordinary. There's so much. It's a vast ocean, and it's so wonderful. But it's a great delight to see when others are appreciating that and taking advantage of what's there, benefiting themselves. And in your case, it is even more exciting. I know your spiritual master, Dave Amrita Swami, shares my excitement about this fact that because you are actually a very good student of Krishna consciousness, and presently we don't have a lot of Vaishnavas in Vietnam. I'm personally not aware of any. And so because it is the desire of Lord Chaitanya and all of our acharyas that Krishna consciousness be spread to every town, village in the world, we get very excited about the prospect of Krishna consciousness being spread to newer and newer places. And there are still places in the world where Krishna consciousness has not reached, and people are suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. To think that at some point in time you may be that person that introduces or reintroduces Vietnam to Krishna consciousness, it's a very exciting and wonderful thought. That at some point in time, Krishna consciousness may begin to explode in Vietnam as it has in many other parts of the world. Vietnam, as you may know, was at one point in time predominated by Vedic culture. It was part of the Vedic Empire, and to this day there are still Vedic temples in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, all around that area. You can still find temples of Vishnu and other temples, but much of that knowledge has been lost, and now I think Buddhism is more prominent, but Vaishnavism was also prominent in those regions once upon a time. So we look forward to the revival of Krishna consciousness in Vietnam. With regards to today's verse, and I'm appreciating your comments about Maharaj Rahugana, who is described as a Rajarshi, a saintly king, Raja Rishi. So both a king, but also a saintly person, a Rishi. And as you say, we don't have that kind of condition now, but once upon a time, even the kings were saintly individuals. So Maharaj Rahugana was saintly, and he was bright and perceptive. He was an intelligent man, and he recognized quickly from hearing the words of Jadabharata. He recognized quickly that here is a saintly person, and he was excited by this. I can feel his excitement. He realized, my gosh, this is an incredible opportunity, and this doesn't happen every day. But somehow or other, by some extraordinary fortune, he's come in contact with a saintly person. So this is a fabulous opportunity, and he wants to take full advantage of it. And his strategy is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says that the king is thinking that I will begin questioning this person who he is understanding to be a representative of Kapila Dev or Kapila Dev himself. He's saying he's thinking that I will begin by rejecting his words in order to evoke from him further explanation. So he wants to hear more, and so he's going to pretend that he disagrees, and he'll argue from that perspective just to elicit further response from Jadabharata, because he's excited to hear more. So lots of excitement. The king is excited to hear more. I'm excited to hear from you more. And I thank you for your class, and I especially thank you for your enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness, your diligence in applying yourself to the process of Krishna consciousness, and the understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. You have a genuine interest, and I made a comment once before that I think due to some technical difficulty you might have missed, but I don't know. It was just probably I compared you to a fine quality premium paper towel because you soak up transcendental knowledge very readily. Very highly absorbent. So that's a great benefit in Krishna consciousness. It's a good quality, something that we should aspire for if we don't have that. But you have that quality that you readily absorb the knowledge that you're exposed to, and you have an enthusiasm for more. So these are really, really good qualities. Utsahan, enthusiasm, is a necessary characteristic for an aspirant to Krishna consciousness, and you have that. So it makes it easy to progress relatively quickly. So it's exciting to watch your progress, and it's really a pleasure to see how you are appreciating the books. Those of us who have been living with the books for some time, we have our own appreciation, and we are awestruck by what's there and how it benefits us, and we're very excited to see others also benefit in the same way. It's just a natural response, and so when I see that in you, I get very excited. It's very gratifying. Anyway, I thank you for your class and for all your classes. They're always very nice, well structured, well thought out. You assimilate the information so nicely, and you present it very, very well. So and you're a relatively young devotee. You haven't been doing it for very long, but you're giving wonderful classes. So it's a credit to you. It's also a great credit to your spiritual master. He's made all of this possible. the proof of the spiritual master is the quality of the disciple. When you see a nice disciple, that's the proof of the quality of the spiritual master. In India, at least, people will understand that. They will judge a guru by the quality of his disciples. Srila Prabhupada would warn us in India, you have to be on your best behavior and put your best foot forward, because you're representing me, and people will they'll understand me based upon what they see in you. So we had a great responsibility. We felt that burden that we have to be careful to represent Srila Prabhupada very well, because that's how people understand. So you're doing a good job of representing your spiritual master. You can be proud and confident in that. I know that Devamrita Swami is excited to have a disciple who is both a good disciple, one who hears and assimilates readily, and also one who has the potential to propagate Krishna consciousness in a part of the world that has been till now relatively neglected in terms of Krishna consciousness. So these are all very exciting things to all of us. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts. We've gone way over time. I don't know what happened to the greeting of the deities. We're almost 8:10, but thank you again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Taraka Prabhu, for a lot of encouragement and inspirations. Yes, like you said, it's all by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna and the mercy of the association of devotees that if anything that I have is really from the mercy of Guru and Krishna and devotees. So thank you so much for your encouragement. Very, very grateful. Okay, I guess we're gonna end class here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glory to the association of devotees. Hari Hari Bol.
Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Shiva, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya, Prabhupada. Namaste, Saraswati, Namaste, Prabhupada. Advaita Pranam Shivas Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Radha Krishna Bhaktivinoda Radha Krishna Govardhan What is it goes with the master? Is the whole way that we can very pure the one who serve. And how about the Lord speaking to the fall and then when it brings me to trust all human beings suffering, to obtain and also Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from the Lord's mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desire. He opens my dark eye, fills my heart with transcendent knowledge. Here's my word about the birth. From me it said it become a family. By me it is let it stay with you. How to be my journey of you. All of my people know. You got to continue with you. You know how to know. Let it down with you. Let it be with you.
Я только была в каком-то я была, там,
Hare Krishna devotees.